it's illegal to wear a hat when a theater curtain is raised. It has been in the books since like 1817.
Wow, I've broken that one.
Right, I mean, everybody else.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us on the Elation podcast today, where we enjoy exhilarating euphoria through creation and collaboration. Today, we're here with Ethan Ellestad. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming here and tell your story.
For sure.
We'll talk about a bunch of stuff, but let's just start about origin story, where you're from, where you grew up, high school, which is always the thought question here.
Yeah, man. So I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. La Follette High School, for those that know Madison.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so grew up there, came to New Orleans in 2009. So was it my 15th, 16th year here now?
Okay.
Yeah.
So right after Katrina.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A couple years.
Yeah, a couple years after Katrina.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple years after Katrina is still a lot of Katrina left.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing in some sense from the 2009 to now, how much has changed from when I was here to, from when I first got here to where it is now. I can only imagine what it was like those initial times and then pre, right? I don't have that frame of reference, but I've got the past 15.
Yeah, it's listen, as growing up here, there was definitely things we lost from Katrina. When people talk about it, I say, one of the things people don't realize is that when all those people got shipped out, you're talking about the chefs, the sous chefs, the artists, the bellmen, the people that run the city, that were the first point of contact for all your tourists, and the people who created that environment for why people come to New Orleans. They were all shipped out for the most part, and yes, we did get a percentage back. But a lot of them, by the time the FEMA trailer was over with 5 years after that and the money dried up, they were already somewhere else in some other town with some other job and didn't necessarily have the funds to come back or necessarily the want to come back. So we lost a lot of the heart of the city, I felt like. But I do believe we've gotten a lot back over the last few years. Reed and I were actually talking about it. The people who seem to have moved back with the thought of let's keep New Orleans instead of creating it into some corporate world, which growing up here, we didn't see that many franchises.
Right.
After Katrina, there's corporate franchises everywhere. So it definitely opened up the realm. Mm-hmm. But what was the initial
what
thing
got
that
me here?
brought you down here? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually came here for grad school at UNO. So I left Wisconsin. I was in the Peace Corps for 3 years.
Okay.
And then after leaving the Peace Corps, I came back here for grad school. It's a study at UNO. I studied urban planning, which, sort of kind of led me ultimately to where I am. I was really interested in kind of the intersection of sort of the planning world, which we can talk about, economic development, and then cultural space. And sort of sometimes those things don't align very well. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes the people that are creating the culture are the ones that are not actually getting benefit from it. I think certainly you see that here, but you
100%.
see that in a lot of areas. And so, I just came back here, did a couple of years at UNO, and then I've been here ever since.
It grabbed you, huh?
Yeah,
New Orleans is like that.
I'm not the only one with that story.
No, man, absolutely not. Well, hell, my grandfather landed on a Navy dock right at the riverfront when he was 19 and never left. And that's how my story started, you know? So as far as like on my mom's side, so like, no, New Orleans have just grabbed people and then not let go. But if we can bottle that up and sell it to people around the country, I think we'd be better off, right?
I mean, it's true, but I think some people do that. They just don't necessarily give those benefits back.
No.
They're selling it. It's just who's getting the benefit.
Who's getting the benefit, right? Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, did you go to school for urban development or?
So originally, back in the day in Wisconsin, years ago, I was actually a communication arts major.
Okay.
Never did much with that. I was in Wisconsin. I actually did a lot of youth work. I worked with kids in neighborhood associations, young men that had been in the criminal justice system and had been adjudicated, and sort of started to keep taking a step back to think why were people in that situation to begin with, and started to work in neighborhood sort of groups, running youth programs, but ultimately felt like I kind of just hit a wall with that, in which I wasn't able to do the work that I wanted to do. I was kind of butting heads with supervisors, thing like let's do this a different direction.
Right.
And ultimately that led me to, again, like joining the Peace Corps. And then
What did you do in the Peace Corps?
I actually developed a community center. I was in Jamaica, so
Okay.
I lived in Jamaica. I developed a community
That's urban
center.
development.
I mean, truly. It was the combination of youth
ipso
work and urban
facto.
development. Right. It was youth work and urban development kind of in the same space, and
Right.
developed youth programming. Was there 2006 to 2009. And then, like, when that's done, you got to figure something. And I thought, like, I don't want to go back and just do what I did previous. And I started to look at graduate programs and, was looking at how can I actually start thinking about what does it look like to do equitable development? How do I kind of learn this piece of it and really kind of do, again, like, work in communities to make sure benefits flow back in the community, and ended up in the urban planning program. I thought I would get a fellowship. I did not, but still here.
Right.
And there was a Peace Corps fellowship, but I thought, like, I'm a shoo-in.
I'm a shoo-in.
I was not, but I still came. Did it and got into UNO, and ultimately, it's funny because I thought, like, there was a lot of things I thought I would never use as a part of that program, and, like, I was much in the sort of the community aspect of it, and I was taking classes about, like, zoning law and things like that. And I thought, man, I will never use this, but I got to do it to get my degree. And now I go through zoning law all the time.
Wow.
Like, it is,
Wow.
it is one of the most common things that I end up looking at as sort of like policy and ordinances and zoning. So you never really know how it's gonna hit and what you're gonna do, but ultimately it's part of what kind of led me to do the work that I do, and that collectively we do at MaCCNO, is looking at these places and these intersections of things that are not necessarily intuitive, like how does music and zoning relate? It turns out there's a lot, but
Right.
people don't think about it because it's behind the scenes, it's not connected. And if you're a musician, you're not necessarily going to think about, like, I got to figure out the zoning law.
No,
and if
no,
you're a zoning, developing zoning law, chances are good you're not a musician, because
Right.
there's such diametrically opposed kind of disciplines.
100%.
And so how do we make this work together?
Listen, and in full disclosure, even though I am a music studio, I'm not a music studio. I'm a film editing audio.
Yeah.
Because I have the Dolby room. So I'm with the film. And yes, we do music, but I'm not a music studio. So don't zone me that.
Right.
You
No,
know?
that's right. and those things matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they can make or break a project or a business if you
Yep.
do the wrong thing to start.
100%.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah,
Right?
no, 100%. Well, I mean, I want to talk about New Orleans, but tell me about Jamaica a little bit, because I've been to Jamaica a few times. I do some deep sea fishing, so I've been to Jamaica a few times. But I spent 6 months actually on a boat down there mating when I was in my teens.
Oh, wow.
But I loved Jamaica.
Yeah, man.
It was great.
I was there for 3 years. I'm still there all the time. And kind of my second home. I was in the town called Ewerton, which is on the highway between Kingston and Ocho Rios.
Okay.
If anyone, like, I know that people that have been there have driven directly past this little community center I worked at. There's a sports complex directly on the highway, and it's on the bus route. So if you ever took a bus from Kingston to Ocho Rios, you probably passed by. If you were there between 2006 and 2009, you might have seen me, like, literally hanging out there on the highway. But what I was doing there really was, I got there was a football field, soccer field, that had a little community complex that nothing had been going on for a while. And the idea was to develop youth programming there. So it was just an overgrown field with some buildings, and kind of got there. I was like, all right, go.
Right.
And, just spent a year figuring it out, meeting people, hanging out with people.
It's a cultural diverse island. Like,
Yeah.
most people don't realize how diverse it is. Because the Germans occupied it at one point, and then they had some other counterpoints.
There were Germans, but it was English certainly most recent. But there's due to waves of immigration, colonialism, et cetera. There are Chinese, Jamaicans. I think
there's tons of white Jewish Jamaicans.
Yeah, there's that. There's,
I don't think anybody understands that.
Yeah, it's actually it's very majority black, but it's also there's more diversity there than I think most people think, because of media and stereotypes, et cetera,
Absolutely.
right? And if you're in sort of and also people sell the vision just like they sell New Orleans,
Right,
right?
right,
You sell
right.
the vision. You've seen us say in those commercials, right?
Yep.
And that's the vision that they sell. But the real Jamaica is very different, and it's the town I was in was again on the highway, but it was just a small enough town where people kind of just know each other. You're just hanging out.
Right.
You go to the rum bar and you watch the football match, and you
Right.
just kind of in community there. And
But the people are great too.
oh
though.
man, it's so welcoming, right?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
I mean, it's great. I fully recommend people go and get out of sort of like in New Orleans when they say like don't they used to say like don't leave the French Quarter, don't go past Rampart
Right.
Street. There they'll say like don't ever leave the resort, but leave it. Absolutely,
Absolutely, get the
leave
hell
it.
out of it.
Right. And-
One of my best experiences of my life. I'll remember it forever. I want to say I was 16 down there, 16, and like I said, I was on a boat for the summer working on as a mate, and we weren't fishing this weekend or whatever, so we all decided to go out and. I mean, I was definitely underage drinking whatever the fuck. I definitely got drunk. But anyway, the point is I ended up by myself at some random reggae bar, and I'm sitting front row watching this reggae girl who was killing it sing. I remember sing Shaggy's Angel, and it was like one of the best moments of my life. Like I remember it to this day. Like I'll always remember it. There's just this is a great feeling of, and I think New Orleans gives a lot of that to people.
I mean, I think that they're both world cultural hotspots, right?
Right.
I mean, particularly Kingston, but Jamaica itself. I mean, think of
Right.
all the things like reggae and Rastafarianism, all the things that have come out of that, fairly small place that have influenced the world, right?
And I mean, there's not a bigger artist in the world than Bob Marley.
I mean, correct, right? It's like Bob Marley, Che Guevara, and like
Right.
a few other people that are that iconic,
Absolutely.
right? And anything New Orleans, I mean, similar, right? Like, world cultural hotspot that's given the world so much, right?
Absolutely.
And I think what's fascinating too about the two is they've influenced each other, right? And so a lot of early New Orleans music influenced early Jamaican music, and so Fats Domino, I've seen Yellow Man twice in New Orleans, and both times, he talks about Fats Domino and Blueberry Hill, and like mentioned like
Right.
it's been an influence, right? And there's been a back and forth that I think isn't as maybe as celebrated as often you hear like the New Orleans Cuba or Haiti connection,
Right.
which are real and ongoing and deep.
Right.
But there has been a connection, particularly musically, between New Orleans music, reggae, and sort of the whole cross pollination of both. I think Ellen Toussaint produced a reggae record. I think most people don't realize, right? But
Well, I mean, we have to be. I mean, I always say we're the most European city in the country, but we are also kind of the most Caribbean city in the country.
No, 100%. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
the pirates. We are the pirate city.
And that is true. But I think there's a lot of diasporic connections, and I think you see it, culturally here. And I mean, you see it in music, you see it in food, you see it in traditional culture. I think it's definitely a lot of that. Again, being on the Caribbean, right? Like right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, Gene the Feet the Pirate, I guarantee you spent time in Jamaica and rode up the Mississippi afterwards.
I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, Port Royal was a big thing. Now it's like trying to make it a cruise ship destination, I think. So I mean,
but that's awesome. Well, so let's talk a little bit about what you do here in the city and how you help artists here and organize things.
Yeah, man. So I'm executive director of MaCCNO, the Music and Culture Coalition of New Orleans, which I would say that's when you name an organization by committee, that's what you get. I think we had 3 meetings where we talked about potential names for the organization when we got together. It was like 2012, 2013, and it was like, maybe we could be Mike, music is culture, and maybe we could do this. And somehow we ended up, after all this, at the New Orleans Music and Culture Coalition, and we were going to do that. And then someone went on to register the website, and nomac.com was taken, and so we had to switch to the Music and Culture Coalition of New Orleans. Meant because MaCCNO.com was available.
Yep.
And ever since we have been MaCCNO, and the acronym is there. It is often gotten wrong by many people, so mostly just MaCCNO is fine. But organizationally, we've been around in some form since late 2012, early 2013, and it sort of started in a really grassroots way. The previous time we hosted the Super Bowl, so I don't remember the number, but the Super Bowl we hosted in early 2013. there was previously there was a crackdown on permitting for music venues, and so venues that had been hosting 5 gigs a week, musicians that had been gigging, the city decided one day to check permits, and this being New Orleans and nobody checking, a lot of places weren't necessarily in compliance, right?
Right.
But also nobody ever bothered to check or care.
Right.
Like nobody in the city said, hey, one day it was just sort of like, boom, everybody's in compliance, and if you're not, you're shut down. And obviously there was a lot of community outcry. And, people went from, again, a business doing 5 nights a week of music going to zero, or a musician that would lose all of their weekly gigs, right? That's catastrophic immediately.
That's what corporate can do to you.
I mean, 100%, right? It's what City Hall can do to you sometimes, right?
Right.
And so it was actually Kermit Ruffins that had a big meeting. He called it, back when he had the speakeasy on Basin Street that's now Frittata, the Haitian restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think a couple hundred people showed up, and he had 2 or 3 of those meetings, and reps from the city came out, and they pretty quickly saw the outcry and addressed the permitting issue. Basically, like, okay, we'll figure it out, right? Like, we'll let you get back up and running, and the venues that could get back up and running did. But in those meetings, it was also coming out like all the other issues that were popping up that had either been long-standing and hadn't been addressed, or were coming up and needed to be addressed. And so a group of people just kept meeting like every Wednesday at noon there for like a year, and just sort of like talking about things, sort of organizing.
Keeping the energy together.
Yeah, keeping the energy, like, pushing back on some things, but sort of building community, naming things by committee, all those things, and developed into a kind of a loose organization that had a little steering committee, and people sending out emails and getting people to push back on different ordinances, supporting folks. That energy kept going for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, but it's really difficult to maintain people just meeting
absolutely. Without organization. Yeah.
And so ultimately then we transitioned in like 2015 to become a more formal nonprofit style, which we're still very grassroots, but also you've got to organize, you got to formalize, and then it gives you access to, funding and doing things, but it also can really allow you to continue in a way that just trying to maintain the coalition aspect we still do, but not in the same way, because just a group of people meeting it's going to peter out eventually. And so, we've done that. But a lot of the work that we do, as we were talking about, is kind of, I would say, is like the least exciting part of cultural work. It's it's the zoning ordinance. We did a lot of work on the noise ordinance. We had a big protest that got a lot of attention in 2014. It's back end support. It's dealing with legal issues. It's and sometimes it's sort of relief work. We did a lot in the pandemic of giving out relief grants, connecting people to services, and then working on the issues that are really impact people's lives and people in the culture community's lives, but maybe not fully culture related, but things like affordable housing issues, sometimes criminal justice reform issues, these things that impact people's lives that allow, we want to make sure people are able to be here to live and to create is kind of the idea, to make sure that all those things are addressed, because once you can do that, then you're much more free to kind of do the cultural aspect, to look at the music business, et cetera.
Right. Well, and because it is so open. I mean, everybody can be an artist nowadays. So to create the culture here that supports all that definitely helps. I mean, and it's always tough organizing, keeping something organized like that.
Yeah.
But I do think that we all have we all have the same vision here in New Orleans. I feel like, and I was just talking about it with Reed, like, I feel positive because I meet constantly people that have that same thought process that we've all continue to have. And I feel like if that thought process keeps creeping around the city, we all will at some point create a crazy business music culture.
I mean, I think that's right, but I think you've also got to, what we think about a lot is, who are the folks that want to be a part of that, but, need to be able to get connected to it, right? Like in New Orleans, right, everybody knows somebody who knows somebody.
Absolutely.
Yep. And so how do you get to the end of that chain? Be like, okay, we talk about, musicians or people that have an idea. It's like, all right, but I want to write a grant. Where do I find a grant?
Right.
Who can help me write this grant? Like, what is a grant?
What is a grant? Right.
And so the idea is, how do you make sure we can draw them in as well and kind of grow the pie? and give the people support that they need to be able to become the visionary, right? Because,
Right.
you know, it's sort of like, you know, the cliche of like, you know, the cure for cancer is out there. We just got to make sure like the kid that is growing up gets the access to the resources to be able to get there. I mean, it's saying like we want to make sure everybody's got the access to resources to be kind of the creative genius, right? To be the
Right.
next person, because there absolutely can be, but not everybody gets the same access to that opportunity. So let's build that in while we vision it out.
100%. How do you feel the state helps?
That's a Reed question, man.
I know, because you're local, but
Yeah, but I mean,
but
I think it can play a role, right? It can play a role to help, or it can do the opposite, right? But I think, you know, tax incentives. I know that they're working on the recording tax incentives, even some of the historic tax credits have been helpful for folks. Something like the dewdrop, I think, tapped into that
Right.
to redevelop the dewdrop in.
Well, and I was telling Rita, it's like really, I mean, we should just follow suit between the Film Louisiana people. I mean, we really like they had the similar roadblocks,
Right.
you know, and it's a lot of behind the scenes work that you don't realize goes into those productions that need to get paid, and that's where you get the tax credits for. And da 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 da. Music's the same way. I mean,
That's
there's
right.
producers, engineers, you know, videographers, and managers, and A&Rs, and there's a whole
It's a whole ecosystem of folks.
ecosystem,
Right.
you know. So if we could follow suit.
Totally.
And there's also music in film. So it feels
Right.
like there's a really good blend of something we could do there to just follow suit and make ourselves as important.
I think that makes sense, and I think it's also a point you made is you've got to think of everybody, right? And I think when people kind of outside of the space think about it, they think of like supporting music or industry. You think of like the business you've heard of or the musician you know,
Right.
but you don't think about all the people that are working with and behind them that you
Yep.
don't see, and they've got to be supported.
Yep.
And I know when COVID hit, right, and everything shut down here so fast,
They
right? We got-
expose so much.
You're right. Totally. And like you
Yeah.
watch the economic safety net collapse, and you watch sort of the lack of support, but also during the initial relief work, one thing that we got involved with was sort of exactly how do we make sure again that we're hitting everybody and not just the musicians that lost some gigs, but also the sound man and maybe the doorman and all these people that are going to be also out of their entire income. But you know, nobody was necessarily doing, at least not nearly as much as they were for musicians, were for like sound techs, right?
Right.
So we got to build them into this ecosystem. And then how do you do it right? So again, with the COVID grants, one thing that came up early on was like musicians would have to be like, prove all the gigs you lost because of COVID.
Right. Yeah, good luck on that.
Right.
You know.
Prove the 3 gigs that you never could book because COVID didn't even exist yet. Now you've lost this income, but if you can't prove it, maybe you don't apply. You don't
Right,
qualify. Like,
right. You know.
get rid of all that.
Oh,
right.
man,
Yeah.
and how many gigs are paid cash?
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
yeah.
you know, I mean, most bar owners I know are going to pay the band in cash.
That's right.
You know.
I mean, exactly. And you know, having a smart sort of thought out policy on the state level, local level, federal level that can build those things on the front end so that we're not trying to figure this out 8 months in, right? Or wherever. We've passed the first bill, but somehow we forgot about all the other stuff. So now we got to go back in another session in 2 more years and fix it and
Right.
bring in more people. So, you know, I think there's roles, but again, it's working with the folks that know the industry, know the people on the front end, and not trying to do a quick fix that ends up, if not being bad, not being the support it needs to be, and you might not get a second round at it. So we got to
Right.
make sure it's good.
No, 100%. Where do you see the future going for MaCCNO?
I mean, so for us, you know, I think it is again really thinking holistically, and I think unfortunately we know that changes on the federal policy level are going to hit New Orleans pretty hard, right? I think. When you look at cuts to healthcare programs, to other benefits, you look at a dip in tourism revenue. All those things are gonna probably hit New Orleans disproportionately hard and hit musicians in the culture community pretty hard as
Right.
well, right? Because a lot of those, you know, are not high wage jobs, unfortunately.
Right.
And so one, it's creating a more robust safety net and support system for folks to make sure that like we keep that floor, right? So people just don't end up losing their ability to make a living or have to pivot, right? Because
Right.
if you can't prove again, if they do these things, and you've got to be able to prove that you're applying for however many jobs to do the thing or to be able to qualify for benefits. If you're a gig worker, that might mean after giving up your gig so that you can try to get this job so you can maintain your benefits.
Right.
Which if you're a musician might mean you
Giving up your career.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we've got to figure out a way to address that. And I think that's unfortunately going to be a major piece of it. But also, what we talk about is expanding the pie. Like, how do you create more access to opportunity for folks that are, again, trying to get in, that have a great idea, that are, younger or are, a gigging musician or whatever, trying to go to the next level, that are trying to figure out to navigate some of these things like grant writing or a fiscal sponsorship, or how to talk to the bureaucracy at City Hall. How do we make sure that we get folks able to access themselves as support, but then get into the system so they can start to advocate and work that for themselves. And then always it's policy change, right? New Orleans is known for being like right, the music city. The other cities try to claim it, right? But
No, we are the music city.
right. But a lot of the policies here have not been historically have been often antagonistic.
Right.
And some of that stuff is still there, and it's sort of a legacy holding things back. And so you've got to unwind some of that.
And it's all cultural stuff, right?
It's cultural stuff. I mean, some of it. I mean, look, there's ordinances. There's one that I always use as an example. There's language in the New Orleans city code that says it's illegal to wear a hat when a theater curtain is raised. It's true. It's illegal in New Orleans to do that.
Wow, I've broken that one.
Right. It has been in the books since like 1817.
Wow.
The same little language has been in there unchanged for, 206 years or something?
Yeah.
I was looking at one the other day. It's actually illegal to have a piano in any business in which it could be played without having a city permit for it. And that dates back to 1917.
Wow.
Which is when Storyville was shut down. And like these things don't get enforced except occasionally when somebody might try.
Piss somebody off. Right.
Or
yeah.
like somebody trying to do something, they figured there's a little arcane law. It's like, oh, I want to get that business shut down. Well, shit, they got a piano in there. Like, I know there's a little law in here.
Right.
And so
kind of how they're doing immigration right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's exactly the idea is that it's been there so long, nobody ever really looked at it, nobody took it out.
Yep.
Not an issue till it is. And there's a lot of those in the code that still trickle up.
Right.
And there's that kind of work. I think we talked a little bit, one of the big things we worked on over the past couple of years was to legalize outdoor live entertainment, right? And live entertainment being music, but also it's like, anything you would essentially do for a crowd and charge money for. It's DJs, it's magic shows, it's dance performers.
Right, yeah.
The street performers are different because they're in public space, which is, again, part of the whole issues is that it's so, it twists and turns, right?
Right.
But we found out just before COVID that the city was not going to allow any business to have outdoor shows unless they bought a special event permit, which is a couple $100, and every time they wanted to do it, which is cost prohibitive for like you're a small business or your business model is like the Broadside, which is outdoor venue plus other stuff. It would be impossible. The city said you cannot do it. The only business that could do it was MaCCNO. Wow. Everybody else in the city, they would never allow it. And it's because in the zoning code, someone in City Hall read the zoning code, and in the restrictions for live entertainment, it says doors and windows must be closed at all times during performances. Okay. But then they looked at it and said, well, outdoor, there are no doors and windows to close. Therefore, you can never allow outdoor live entertainment because you can't close doors and windows.
Wow.
Which is, nonsense, right? Like it's a non-existent.
It's kind of like giving you the daiquiri through the drive-through window, but not putting the straw in the cup for you.
Right.
There's a little bit of,
it is, and somebody just determined that, but it was shutting down.
That's nuts.
Right.
That's nuts.
And it's impacting businesses, right? And during COVID, they allowed people to do it basically because it was the only safe way to have music. But then we found out that City Hall was then going to say once the COVID restrictions are gone, everybody that had outdoor shows and invested in their outdoor spaces would be shut down immediately, and their investment would be lost because the old law would go back into effect.
You know, if only politicians did business before they got into politics. I mean, it would really help out a lot. You know?
I mean, right? It was. It didn't make any sense. It was counterintuitive, health wise, economically, and so we actually then had to work with city council to change the law. And over a year and a half, we had to go back and do meetings. And Councilmember Moreno really kind of helped with her team to kind of work with city council members, work with neighborhood associations, and work with city planning commission to figure out a way that we could change the zoning code. It took a year and a half, and finally they would make enough changes that now you can have a few outdoor venues and spaces, and it's like there's a pathway to do it legally, but. It was such a change just to basically allow what people have been doing during COVID, and now there's a few outdoor spots, right? And like it's not game changing, it's people worried like it'll be pandemonium, and neighborhood associations will be like, well, now everybody's going to have outdoor music all the time, right next to me. Right. There's not a market for it.
No,
there's a few spots, but just to go through that process to do it because somebody made one decision sometime 7 years ago that was going to impact everybody's business and ability to perform, in perpetuity unless it got fixed.
Right. No, and it's just short-sighted, 100%. Well, and I think live music is part of what drives the heart of the city. So, I mean, I don't, other than, neighborhood disturbances, I don't understand why anybody would not allow live music, especially at up to a certain point,
right?
Because this is what our city's about. You might as well stop us from cooking too,
right? I mean, some people might try.
Depends on what you're cooking. That fryer is pissing me off, but anyway. Well, listen, I really appreciate what you do for the city, and I appreciate your advocacy, and I hope to work with you and hopefully do some good here in the future.
Yeah, man, always happy to. Always happy to help out. There's unfortunately always more work to do.
Always more work to do. Yep. That's why Reed always looks stressed. Except for when he's playing for Bucktown All-Stars.
There you go.
Other than that, he always looks like he's got something on his mind.
There's always more.
100%. But, well, listen, like I said, I appreciate you. And why don't you tell everybody where we can find MaCCNO and the socials?
Yeah, man. We are at Music Culture 504 on Instagram. Instagram, Blue Sky, and Twitter, all Music Culture 504. I think we are MaCCNO page on Facebook. I mean, if you look up MaCCNO, you will find us. But I think that's largely it. You can also sign up on our website for emails at MaCCNO.com. There's a little email list sign up. We don't send out emails that often. You might get one like once a month. So it's not overwhelming. But yeah, please check us out. We do updates. We'll be in touch.
Awesome. Well, you guys please support because this is important for the city, and we gotta keep everybody together and making energy to create a new business culture out here that we can all thrive in. So like I said, thanks so much, and thank you guys for joining us today. And if you'd like to like and subscribe and watch more, please do.
Appreciate it.